am Chastity, and this is my bestie.
Ebony, and today we are coming to you from our Unapologetically Me and Christ podcast. We are talking about a topic that is, I guess you could say, is now being often spoken on, but a lot of times it's just spoken on amongst our homegirls, our friends, and not necessarily on a platform as we're doing today. So today our topic is Black women have postpartum too.
Yes, this is going to be a special episode because we have a special guest. Today, we have my sister that I met through a coaching program all the way from Be More, Dr. LaToya Wiggins. She is the CEO of She Is Nourished LLC. She's a wellness coach, a self care strategist for Christian moms, and a transformational speaker. She is most definitely all those things and more. She's a wife, she's a mom, and she is able to find ways to balance every role and every hat that she wears, despite of her ups and downs. But she also, y'all, was able to use her valleys, her lows. She was able to use those things to create strategies and tips to help other moms like us that go through different situations how to get to that mountaintop. So we are so excited to have our sister Dr. LaToya.
Yes, yes,
Hey,
Yay!
yes,
hey.
yes.
Thank
Welcome,
Join
you.
welcome,
us
welcome,
today.
Latoya.
Welcome,
Thank you,
sis.
ladies. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes,
Right.
yes, we're yes, this is going to be a good episode. So, Dr. LaToya, what I want you to do is just, I know I gave, an intro, but I want you to tell the people who you are, share your story with our audience.
Yeah, so hello everyone again. So yes, my name is Dr. LaToya Wiggins, but feel free to call me LaToya. Right now, I just want to relax and take off the titles, even though we're talking about postpartum. So I guess I got to keep my mom hat on just a little bit. So I am a mom of 3 boys. So shout out to the boy moms out there. I have a
Boy
13-year-old.
mom.
Yay! I have a 13-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old. I'm a wife. As Chastity said, I reside in Baltimore, born and raised. I'm a physical therapist also, but I've been taking a break from that since my youngest was born. And it was in the middle of the pandemic. So I just wanted to say, you know what? This is the last child I plan on having. So I'm just going to stay at home with him. But while I'm staying home, I'm focusing on my business, doing wellness coaching and self-care strategies for moms. And I like to say I transition those moms from worn out to winning. I teach them how to no longer feel depleted, but how to develop those healthy habits to be nourished, renewed, and rejuvenated with biblical principles that bring peace instead of self-pity.
Mhm.
Amen. I love it. I love it. So, LaToya, I want to ask you this question. So, me and Ebony, whenever we're on the phone, just talking to each other, because we don't get to be face to face because we're in two different cities now.
Right.
So, most of our combos are over the phone, and we always are discussing how life is so different for us. At this age and where we are spiritually, mentally, and physically,
Mhm.
where we are right now in our 30s. Okay.
Yes.
So we just talked about it was a big difference because me and Ebony, we both had, our first children. We had our first sons. I mean, well, I had a daughter, but Ebony got 2 sons. But we had our first kids like in our early 20s. And so we're like comparing it to where we are now. And it's such a difference from having a child in your 30s. So
Mhm.
I just want to ask you, did you notice any challenges with having your son or just being a mom period, mothering all your children where you are now in your life in your 30s?
Yes, definitely. So I had my oldest son at 24. Yes, I was still 24. And I was in the middle of PT school. So, and I think I was the first of my actual close friends to have a child. So I was in school and I was still trying to keep up with my friends. And, I was young. So I felt like I had so much more energy back then. Even with all three kids, I had morning sickness, or like I like to call all day sickness, because I was sick all day long. But I don't know what it was. But with my first son, I literally only had the morning sickness in that first trimester. With the other two kids, it was throughout the whole pregnancy. Like, I felt miserable my last two pregnancies. And every time I think about that, I'm like, was it because I was out and moving around a lot when I was 24? Like I said, I was in school. So I just didn't even have time to, I guess, sit in misery. Like, I was on the move trying to still, go to school, stay in school, make sure I didn't fail out of school. I was still trying to keep up with my friends and everything. And even like in the last few months of pregnancy, my body started to hurt then. So, but I don't know. I still feel like everything was just so different with that first pregnancy. And that's really the only thing I could think of. Of course, times change. Each pregnancy is different, but I felt like I still had so much more energy during that first pregnancy. With the last two, all I did was lay around. If I could lay
Right.
around, great. Even when I did work, it was like I'm just counting down, like, when can I go home and lay down?
Mm-hmm.
And I
I
wasn't
can
like that in the
definitely
first
agree.
pregnancy. I was like, okay, I'm
Yes.
home from school, y'all. Where y'all going at? Like, I was still going to the clubs and everything up
Yes.
until
Girl.
I was actually like truly showing. I have pictures of me when I was 6 months pregnant, because I did take a while to show too during that first pregnancy. But I remember at 6 months, that's when I actually started showing. And I had this nice dress that was like big and flowy, so you couldn't even tell I was pregnant unless like I pushed the dress like up against my stomach. I'm like, and I had on
Mhm.
heels, girl. And that's actually, I remember that's when
Girl.
my hips actually started hurting, around that 6 month mark or whatever. But I went out to dinner with two of my friends. We went to the club afterwards and everything.
Yes.
Girl,
Look, we
no.
ain't judging you here, honey. Cause look, see, I got pregnant with my son my senior year of high school, towards the end of my senior year of high school. So yes, ma'am. Just because I got this big belly, my friends most definitely was not about to leave me going to the
Right.
party. Okay,
Yes.
so there's no
Yes.
judgment here, honey. And my belly was sticking out. Like I was in the stage of my pregnancy where I could not hide, especially when you're trying to wear those little cute clothes. You still trying to wear cute clothes when you're
Right.
young and you're pregnant. With
Yes.
the heels on, baby. Okay.
Yes.
It
And
fire and ice for all my Memphis people that know what that club is.
fire and ice and senses.
Girl, with my
Mhm.
belly. So most definitely had more energy back then, able to move around. And I also feel like my bounce back period, like after having the baby, was way more quicker than it was in my 30s. But of course, my first pregnancy, I had my son's vaginal, but when my second pregnancy in my 30s, I had my daughter in a C-section. So those were most definitely two different labor experiences, and it's gonna also have two different recovery experiences as well. But even besides all that, I just feel like I was able to recover quicker. I remember recovering quicker after I had my son. Like I was ready to get back in them streets, to go back
Ready for the
outside
world.
like a
Hmm.
week after having him.
Ready for the world. Ready for the world.
Yes.
Yes.
So I
I
just think
know.
it's different with that. What was yours,
Yeah.
nephew?
None, I was just saying, I know that was definitely a key factor with me as well when I had Kai versus now with Kaden. Yeah, I'm postpartum 8 weeks. My baby is 2 months old, and I literally needed the whole 6 weeks to recover. Because I had a vaginal this time versus when I had Kai, girl, I don't even remember being laid up in the house recovering after I had him. Of course, it was super duper cold when I had him. So I do remember because it was snowing when we came home. But other than that, as far as like any after labor pains or dealing with any after effects, girl, I was ready for the world after I had Kai. And it's just a big difference in your 20s versus in your 30s. And me and Chassie we used to say all the time, don't take our advice now, y'all, but we used to say all the time, it's almost like we need to encourage these young ladies to go and have your babies early in your 20s.
We were like, child, them girls is
Because
gonna pop them babies out when they young,
girl,
honey.
yes, because when you get in your 30s, baby, it hit differently.
It hit different.
Mentally, physically, emotionally. I don't even think when in my 20s I even dealt or even was concerned about postpartum.
Postpartum, yeah.
Like, girl, my mama tried to say that because my oldest was hospitalized at 2 months. He woke up with a really extreme high fever. And of course, when the fever is like 103, like his, they kept him for days. And my mama was like, oh, she got postpartum. I was like, I ain't got no postpartum. And now that I sit here and I think about it, I'm like, I probably did have postpartum, but didn't
Mhm.
know and was so young. And we're kind of naive too in your early 20s when you're having babies as well. So
I think
it's
the only thing that, if anything, I was crying about after having my baby was baby mama, baby daddy drama. Trying to like, it's the only thing I'm probably crying and upset about at night is this relationship is not going the way I picture it to be, but just being in my feelings for no reason. I can't really just think about that, but maybe that's probably why I probably overacted the way I did about my
mm-hmm,
relationship after my
mm-hmm,
son. So it's just having that education piece is so
mm-hmm,
important. And
mm-hmm,
so, with you saying that, Ebony, and I want to hear your thoughts as well, Toya, is, I think in the Black community, we do have this thing with Black women is, be independent, live your life, do your thing, don't attach yourself to no man. No, you too young to get married. In your 20s, you need to wait till you do something like that. In your 30s, you need to live live in the world, be in the world, live out your dreams, get your careers and all those things, and think about relationship and a family later. Just build yourself to be this strong Black woman with all these types of titles and goals and success in your 20s is mostly said to us. But after, like Ebony brought up, after us having our experiences and seeing, like, maybe it's not so bad if you are in that, part of your life to have room to get married. You do have someone, responsible, loyal, love you, all those good things. It's not a bad idea to go ahead and start, because something that they don't mention is, like, the later you wait, the more higher risk you're putting yourself in danger and your baby in danger. And it's just not talked about openly, I think, because I think in other cultures, it's more pushed on them to get married, to get a family. But in the Black culture, it's like, live your life, go to school, do what you got to do. Worry about that when you get 30 something. So I just want to know what y'all thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's so true because I mean, I feel like it's so funny. Like when I think back to like being a teenager or even my early 20s, I always envisioned me being married early. And now in my late 30s, anytime I hear about somebody like, oh yeah, I got married at 20, I got married at 21, anything usually earlier than 25, anything usually a lot of times in your 20s, it sounds so weird, like, girl, you was a baby. But we didn't feel that way back then, but I don't know. Things have changed so much. And I really think it's that culture piece where a lot of times, I guess in this day and age, I don't know, because of things that got messed up over time, a lot of times it is true, like you are kind of a baby in that stage because I feel like we just grew up in a different age where a lot of us weren't and still sometimes aren't mentally mature for marriage. You're going into marriage for the wrong ideas. We're thinking about the wedding, not past the wedding phase, and I think, that's just there's something going on, I guess, probably since the 1900s on down to the 2000s, but body wise, yes, like, yeah, the snapback, and I ain't saying the snapback like you getting snatched because my stomach sure was not snatched after I had my first son. But like you said, the things you just going through that pregnancy phase, the postpartum stage, it was a lot easier. And like you all mentioned, I don't know if I don't know. I felt like I think I've told you, Chastity, like looking back, retrospectively, I probably been dealing with things like depression for a long time. But again, you kind of just keep on pushing that strong Black woman type of thing. But, and I had my own stresses, maybe depression back then, but it wasn't necessarily related to me having a baby. It was like all the stuff that happened after the fact. Like I said, I was still in school. Like we were talking about being back out and about fast. Like I had a C-section and my butt was up and down the highway in 3 weeks, going back to school, trying to keep up with my grades and everything. I wasn't with my oldest son's father, but we were trying to see, if things could work or whatever. So I had that issue. Like I said, the baby mama, baby daddy issues, like we caused even more drama between us, or stress trying to see if we were going to work, and it wasn't working. So you got that, I was still in school, missing out, this pregnancy, well, not pregnancy, me having a child was not the way I envisioned. And then I'm in school, so I'm not spending enough time, or the time that I envisioned that I would have with my child. So I had all that kind of stress, not necessarily like, oh, I don't know, I feel like I didn't have time. That was the thing, like I ain't had time to deal with any postpartum stuff. It feel
Well,
like I'm like dealing
I
with a
want to
whole bunch
get
of
on
stress
that.
stuff.
I want to get on that because that mom guilt, not spending
Yeah.
enough time, like even that is a comparison. When we're young, and that's something else me and Ebony's talking about. When we're young and having kids, we're just like we're not really thinking about the time that we're pouring into our kids. We're thinking about like having them in cute clothes and taking pictures and just, going out to do fun things with them. But we're not thinking like sitting down with them, teaching them, spending time. But in our 20s, and this is the kind of like the bitter part of that bittersweet of being young, having a baby, you get to snap back easier, you have more energy. But that bitter part is we're still trying to figure ourselves out. We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to work these different jobs. We're working like 2 jobs. We're living on our own. We're trying to maintain. Some of us may be in school. So you're trying to finish school, get the degree, do what you got to do, hustle, hustle, grind, grind, trying to build some money up for me and my child at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like now you're not really like, I feel like all of us now at this point, we're spending a lot of time with our kids. Like we're
Yeah.
really nurturing them,
Right.
nourishing them and feeding them. And so I just feel like that part also plays a lot into it. I know when I think about my life with my oldest son compared to my motherhood with my youngest, I'm like, there's a difference when it just comes to the time spent. Like
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
wasn't spending as much time with my youngest son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say that piggyback off LaToya, I honestly feel like in your 20s, mentally, I don't care how grown you think you are, you're not mentally, because as Chastity said, we were saying like we think it's having kids, like you said, I wanted to work it out with my child's father. We and don't get me wrong, sometimes you do end up with your child's father. You do end up getting married at 20 and being married for 30 years. But what are the statistics on that? Like I really need to look that up, because you have this idea of, oh, we're going to be a family. Oh, this is my forever man. Oh, this, oh, that. We're doing everything for the wrong reasons. And so we
Yeah.
have these children and we dress them up, but we dropping them off because we trying to still keep up in our 20s. We trying to still party. We trying to still get our degree because we want to be a successful Black mom raising a child. We're doing all of this, but we're not focusing in on the child. And so that's why I do not encourage, at a younger age to have children. I do encourage you to be mature and at least 28 or older, to have children and to have that spousal support. My pregnancy this time was totally different from the pregnancy with my first son, just because I had that spousal support. And as you said, physically with the body wise, in my 30s, I had medical issues going on during my pregnancy, but because I had a spouse and I had someone to love that, and that loved me and care for me, it was different, versus if I was in my 20s and I had some medical issues going on, that nigga probably would be like, that's your problem. Where your mama at? You know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
they trying to do what they trying to do at the same time, trying to still do us too. So,
Right.
when
2
you're
immature
young,
people having
yeah, you
kids together,
immature and
yeah.
you're young and you're trying to keep up and you just, so to piggyback off what you were saying, yes. And I
And
forgot what.
even while you was talking, I also was thinking
Mhm,
about the young ladies that have babies when they're young and do not have no support. They don't have
Yeah.
nobody to drop their kids off to. They can't
mhm,
finish school because they do not have no babysitter. They can't afford no
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
babysitter. So you also have those women that was like, I had to grind, like I had to do what I had to do. I didn't have time to have fun and be in the streets and da da
Yeah.
da. And so now they're trying to recap their youth years when their kids are more independent and now they always out and about. But
Right.
it's
Right.
like
In
you're
their
still
30s
a
now in the
mom.
streets.
Yeah, like your baby's just a teenage, but this is when they really need you to be at home with them. So you got those moms to deal with those issues as well.
But see, at the same time, you a young mom, you don't have no support. And so you trying to do what you got to do, and you still don't have time for your child
Yeah.
Hmm.
because you still trying to do what you got to do. You're not focusing in. Y'all, I am so grateful. And like you said, you be on this mom guilt trip with your oldest, but with my youngest, like I'm just noted, y'all. I did not know that when babies are first born, they do not have tears.
Oh no.
They gain tears as they get older. My son is 2 months now. Now he's starting to have tears. He didn't have tears. He just was
Like you're
hollering
noticing.
when he came home.
Hmm.
I didn't notice that with my first child.
Mhm.
It's a lot
I'm
of
just
You
things.
like,
might
boy,
notice
take
that
this
period.
bottle.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that I'm noticing in my second seed that I
Mhm.
didn't notice in my first seed. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel so bad. And I'm like, oh my God, he's smelling for the first time. Then I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember when my first child smelled for the first time.
Well, look, let me tell you about that. I feel like I did better with my first son. I got the journals, the baby journals for each one of my children. First son, filled out, even probably up to at least 2 years old. Girl, with each child, them journals looking a little empty and empty. I can even tell you the exact time that my son was born. I remember I even looked at the clock. I exited out. I looked at the clock. That is forever ingrained in my head. Ask me what time them other two were born. It was 10 something. I think it was 10:20. My husband told me, and I'm like, look, that was his first child. So that's probably why he remembered. Look, and I'm still, I think it was 10:20. The other one, it was 11 something. Look, thank goodness for the
Right.
journals, though. I got them, I got them written down in
Got
the
them written
journals, but I
down.
can't tell you off the top of my head.
That's
Girl.
that's true too for me because I remember when my first son, he has a whole baby book. Like I started a baby book. Camera phones wasn't just that popular. So when we
Right.
were uploading, we had to scan the picture to upload on social media and all of that. Y'all remember
Mm-hmm.
that?
I
So
had the
my
actual camera.
mom, yeah. So that's what I about to say. My mom bought me an actual digital camera. So I've just taken so many pictures and recordings of my first son. I made him a baby book. Child for Chloe. I had to remind, and we're going through a pandemic, and I'm in the house all day. I still had to
You ain't
remind
got no
myself, like,
choice.
Chastity, you ain't take no picture of your baby in 2 days. You need to take some picture to capture these moments so she can at least have something to look at through your phone if you ain't gonna print them out and put them in a book like you did for your son.
Well, let me just say with my son, with the first one, I got a picture frame. And I pray I still got it because we may have lost it with the transition, but it goes from the months. And I probably stopped at like 3 months with it. And the baby book is all over the place, just ultrasound
Do
pictures
you
and
still have
everything.
it?
I still got it. And I'm still going, and I've been saying I'm still going to put his memories in there because my mom has so many pictures of my firstborn.
Oh, that's a blessing.
She got so many pictures of him. And with Caden, I don't even have a baby book. Let's start there. So,
Mhm.
and I was like, I don't have a baby book for his memories. I got to
Mhm.
get one so I can. So that's definitely on the to-do list for both of
I
my
feel
children.
bad. I feel
Yeah.
bad. Chloe about to turn 3 years old next weekend. I still saying I gotta get her a baby book. So don't feel bad. But Dr. LaToya, LaToya, you the girlfriend today. I'm just calling
They take the
LaToya.
titles off.
Yeah, she said take the titles out, sister. So long as you give me permission, baby, because I ain't taking nobody's title off because I know you probably work hard for them
Sorry for
letters.
that, baby. Yeah.
Okay. So you give me permission, I'm gonna do it. But what I want to know next from your perspective, kind of like what we're touching on, is what's the thing that a lot of times we do not talk about when it comes to that pregnancy journey, and even after having a baby? Like, what are the things, especially in the Black community, when it comes around like family or and all of that with your friend girls and all of that? What is the thing that we don't necessarily make into one of those hard conversations when it talks about being pregnant And after having a baby, what do you feel like are some of those things that we really do not discuss?
For me, I don't know, I feel like, especially with the first pregnancy, I felt so lost. And maybe because, like I said, back then, actually I keep saying I was the only one of my friends. I forgot one of my close friends. We were actually pregnant at the same time. But I mean, again, we were pregnant at the same time though, but where nobody else really had like other younger kids. But I remember after I had my son and I had a C-section. And the nurses, they coming around, they giving me pads and everything. And I was confused. I'm like, I had a C-section. Like, why am I bleeding down there? Right. Then I remember I said something to my mom. I said, y'all didn't think I would be bleeding down there since I had a C-section. She said, LaToya,
Wow.
I didn't know that you actually
Yeah.
shed like you have your period after
Mhm.
you give birth. I'm like, oh, like, and then I fell asleep and like,
Mhm.
that's nothing nobody ever told. Like my mama didn't tell
Mhm.
me that. I did not know.
Mhm.
And like I said, I'm confused. I think like if I had a vaginal birth, I probably wouldn't have said nothing to my mom at all. I'm just thinking I'm bleeding because of
The
what happened
vaginal
there.
birth.
Yeah. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, so this is what happens after. It's good to know. You
And
Mhm.
know.
some people don't even have their mamas to ask, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
they just left on their own trying to figure
Right,
things
because I didn't
out.
ask the nurse. I'm just confused. I'm like, why am I bleeding like this? Damn it.
Mhm.
Then I had
Mhm.
the swollen legs. I knew some people had the swollen legs while they're pregnant, which I
Yes.
did get that like near the end a little bit. But from me having a C-section, all the fluids and everything they pumping in me, all that major surgery, girl, them elephant legs are serious.
Woo,
There's
Jesus.
things, I guess I just didn't have those things to discuss where I felt like the more, over time, my friends had kids or I end up being friends with people who had kids. I felt like it was actually a little bit more normal again in my 30s. Like these are things that we're all talking about, comparing,
Mhm.
yeah, this happened during my pregnancy or this happened and I
Mhm.
had babies. And then with the breastfeeding thing, I think that's a big one because I want to say, yeah, most of my friends didn't breastfeed. So um yeah, that was new for me. So even with my friend who was pregnant at the same time as I was when I had my first son, she didn't breastfeed. So that was a new journey for me. And I didn't stick with it long because I was in school, but still I did it for like a month or so, whatever. And yeah, I think like 4 or 6 weeks pretty much. But that was something new. And I think I had a lot of that knowledge because at the time I was working at Babies R Us.
Okay,
So
I was just about to ask you that. Like, how did you know about breastfeeding with your first
I
son?
actually, and that was it because I worked at Babies R Us, and that was one of the things they try to promote. Like because you got to tell people the breast pumps and everything. So I actually knew a lot because of that.
Oh,
They used to even
wow.
have like a lactation consultant come in and talk to the moms and things like that. So I actually knew a lot about that. And that's another guilt piece too. So I felt bad when I actually stopped breastfeeding. Like I was planning on doing it much longer, blah blah blah, whatever. But that was one thing. And then even after I had my second son, like with each child, I breastfed longer. My last one actually breastfed for 13 months. So
Oh, wow.
I felt quote unquote accomplished, even though, like I said, look,
Wow.
whatever you do for you and your child, that's what's best with you, which is why I stopped with the
Mhm.
first one at 4 months. I stopped at 6 months with the second one. But even with each one of those, I never had close friends who breastfed for a long time. It was always like, especially with my second son, he's 6, so that's when I'm on Facebook and you find out it's all these different communities. So I'm all in the breastfeeding groups and stuff. So you're finding out about different things you can do to increase your milk supply or all those different things. But I didn't have anybody like personal close to me to talk to those things about to talk
Mhm.
with those things about. My mom, she didn't breastfeed my brother and I, so. And I feel like even just growing up, I never really knew. It was like every now and then you knew somebody who breastfed, but
Yeah.
most people were always formula, formula, formula.
Yeah.
If you even mentioned breastfeeding, girl, I ain't trying to breastfeed. Yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
even
I
goes
got
back if you
that.
think about that early 20s
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
That's how it
Nobody
was
was
for
trying to
me.
really breastfeed in their 20s because again,
Yeah.
you was trying to be out in them streets ripping and
Exactly.
Yeah.
running.
First of
Yeah.
all, I was so closed-minded when it came to it with my
Yeah.
first child. I was like, you want him to latch on? I said, girl, if you don't go get him a bottle of milk, baby, ain't no latching going on here, okay? He ain't doing that. That was in my 20s. But now I'm breastfeeding in my 30s. I had to think about how old I am all the time. And it's going good, but this is not even one of the questions that we want to ask, but because you stated that, I just want to know, like, with your second son and with your third son, or just even period, like, how did you transition? Like, how did you transition from stop breastfeeding? Because when you say breastfeed, I think about the baby actually being latched onto your breast. I know we have the areas where, you can pump the breast milk and they can also drink the bottle, which I do both. But I feel like my baby is just he's so spoiled, and he used my breast for comfort. So I'm thinking to myself, like, how am I going to transition him to take him completely off my breast? So how did you do the transition as far as just stopping the latching on your breast?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people tend to have a hard time with that. For me, it was actually very easy, probably because I was doing both. Now, what I was trying to do primarily was had my about to say my father, had my husband or anybody else, make sure that they were using bottles. Sometimes I would bring bottles with me when we were out and about because I personally uncomfortable breastfeeding in front of people. I know a lot of people are like, girl, just whip it out. It's like I never got to that comfort level. And again, I feel like just do if you're comfortable with whipping it out, great. With me, I didn't even really mind, but I definitely, for me, I needed to cover up, and that covering up piece would never work because the baby all moving all over the place. Like, look, now you got my boob exposed. Like I said, for me, I personally did not want to be exposed, so a lot of times I would bring bottles with me. I mean, I would do it in the car. Girl, I would actually pump in the car, girl. Oh, we going on a date night? All right, let me bring my pump in the car. So I would feel fine like that, but just like being out in public in general, I wasn't always whipping it. So a lot of times I would bring bottles, and my children would take bottles from me. Where I know some people like, oh, my son, my child, they won't take the bottle. I was good with that. Like my child, as long as they had something in their mouth, they were good.
Yes, that's how my son is. He don't
Yeah.
care. Now it has to be breast milk because I tried to supplement Similac. For the first few weeks when he first came into the world, he would drink it. But then the Similac and the blue bottle, I can't think of the name of it. It was like 2 weeks ago, y'all. When I say he threw it all, because I had to leave, and his daddy was like, he threw all of that milk up. I was like, his stomach is not in agreement with it anymore because he's been getting the breast milk. And so I have a close friend of mine that's pregnant as well. Our babies are a week apart. And so she supplements all the time. And she was like, I use this. And it was like, it's Similac too, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it might need
y'all, I went and bought that. I went and bought that supplement. I put it in the bottle. He tasted on his tongue. He was like, get it away. No. So I told my husband, I said, it looked like he just gonna be getting breast milk. I can't be being lazy. I gotta go and do what I gotta do.
Because Toy said, honey, she was bringing that pump with her on date night. Did you catch that?
And so that's what I'm gonna have to start taking my pump. I don't take my pump with me. Like if I'm leaving the house, I do have bottles for him, but you will probably have to pump while you're in the car, or depending on.
Girl, I was driving. I would drive and pump. Like, oh, I got off work. All right, let me set up, double pump. All right, on my way home, girl, I used to have it like tucked in my sports bra and all.
So you made sure you was on the clock with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I was perfect with it, but that was another reason too, because sometimes I'm going overboard where it's like, oh my goodness, I am about to explode, or they're already leaking, and I need to relieve myself. So yes, girl, I would be driving, or if I'm with my husband, he's driving. I remember one time I went out with my friends while we went for our food. I'll be back. I'm about to go to my car and pump.
I know that's right.
We went to Vegas, girl. I came back with a big old lunch bag cooler thing with my breast milk. So yes, I wasn't playing.
Yes, ma'am. That's what's up. So now, for me, on this same topic, like what was the thing that people didn't really talk about when it came to pregnancy? Of course, delivery. I think epidural is something I heard a lot. Labor and all of that, having contractions. I think those type of terms and words were kind of common, even going to baby showers and all that different type of stuff.
That's all you hear.
Yeah, there'll be a part of conversation, but wasn't nobody talking about postpartum. no one was talking about postpartum. And I know for me, dealing with the physical and emotional facts, like you brought up the swollen feet and the elephant legs, like I was scared because I didn't know what was going on. Like, why is my legs swelling up so bad? Important for us to educate ourselves. But I'm like, dang, like, who's going to open the door for me to walk through to gain more knowledge on my own to, start it for me? And I just felt like my doctor, which I don't know, but I know my doctor was white. I'm not sure if they played a part in anything for her not putting me on game of what was going on, but she did not like educate me on anything or nothing. I do love my doctor pediatrician that we were seeing in Memphis. And she was a white lady. But when we went in that room, she was educating us. She was letting me know what some things I may have to look out for my baby when she's at this stage. Oh, she get a couple more weeks, she may start doing this and that. So I love that, but I was not getting any type of postpartum education from my doctor, and it scared the heck out of me. We already in the pandemic. I don't want to go to back to the hospitals or emergency room because I don't want to bring no germs back to my baby. I don't want to bring COVID back to my baby. And I had her in the height of the pandemic. So that scared me. Being isolated from my friends and family, no one can really come into my house. Like, me and my mom got into a big spat, and I know that she just wanted to be near me and her grandkids. But I'm like having my husband is like worrying me, like, we don't need nobody. And I'm like feeling my mom frustration. I'm sad too. So I'm like crying because my mom can't be there, crying because I'm trying to still like not, bring no germs around my baby, crying because I don't want no drama with my husband, crying because I feel alone, crying because I didn't have nobody. Because when I had my son, I had everybody at the hospital. Everyone was there, family, friends, everybody was supporting me on this new chapter. But the second time around, I felt so isolated. And I think that's another reason COVID made my postpartum increase even more. And I wasn't working anymore. I quit my job towards the end of my pregnancy, which I think that was a blessing because that's when, getting all the COVID and shutting downs, and I had to go into people's house. So I was a caseworker, so I had to like go in my clients' homes. So I'm like, ooh, I'm glad I ain't got to worry about that. But I'm not getting to like interact with people besides my husband. Like, my husband's the only person I was interacting with in my home. So my postpartum was just like a hot mess. So that is something that I know that is not discussed, especially I didn't get that piece, what was going on. I had to do my own research. And it was such a blessing because I was still in grad school that it just so happened postpartum counseling, dealing with postpartum with your patients with postpartum depression, specifically with women, was one of the things that I was going over in my class. So it was actually the videos and the material that my professor had us to read and review. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through postpartum depression. This was everything I was reading, all the symptoms, everything. I'm like, this, I've been going through this. I crying and not wanting to shower and not want to deal with your baby sometimes and all of that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through this. And then as I got to see the phases of
Sis,
how
hold on. Hold
what?
on.
What, girl?
We don't need them saying you don't shower. Sis.
Girl, I didn't want to shower. I didn't feel like it.
But
Girl, I
that's
didn't
true
Girl,
though.
feel like
girl.
it. Okay.
The
I've
first thing
heard
It's
I
a
thought
you.
lot
about.
of, but no, I've
Baby, this
heard a lot of
tissue
people
better do
say
what it do.
that. A
The
lot of
first
people
thing
say
I
that.
the first thing I thought about was B Simone. Sis.
Girl, okay? Honey,
Shout out to
listen.
B
I ain't
Simone,
judging
but
her.
that's the
Be
first thing
Simone.
I
I ain't
thought
judging.
But
Baby.
that wasn't due to no postpartum depression though either. So B Simone, that's a whole nother subject right there. What she was
Girl.